Nell Owen, aka Sticks, and you're listening to the Crew Podcast on YouTube.
This is the YouTube Crew Access Podcast. My name is William Bryson. I'm the founder and the owner. And I'm very, very happy this evening as we're doing a very special edition of the podcast. And with me is the newest and the sixth member of the crew, Miss Kristy Riley. Kristy, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. A lot of people don't know this, but when I say this is a special podcast, it really is a special podcast because we're actually live. Like literally, I can touch you. We're live. So
we are live,
which is a first. And this is going to be, for me, a very, very, very special podcast. Only because I don't get to say this too often, but you and I have known each other since literally almost birth.
Oh my God, forever. Yeah.
Forever. So this is going to be a very interesting podcast. So let's jump right into it. And like I said, we've known each other, oh my God, for years. You just turned 40.
Yes.
And of course, I just turned 41. So just a little bit about our age, just for people that are listening. Let's talk about the early days because, like I said, we lived 2 houses up. I remember the early days with you as far as the Scotts.
Yeah.
And of course, Katie. And the
Richie,
old
Ryan, Rochelle. I mean, the whole neighborhood.
The gang.
Yeah.
We know it's the gang. Growing up, especially like I said, growing up in that generation, what are your memories? Not just of the neighborhood and the gang, but just your experiences back then.
You know, one of the things I really think a lot about is the innocence that all of us had. We went out, we played kickball,
That's
played,
true.
Hide and go seek. We played all the fun games, and it was just the innocence about it. And it was so fun. And everybody in the neighborhood was in the field doing their thing. We didn't come home till the street lights came on.
That's true.
That's just how it was back then. I think today's kids, they don't do that. They're kind of on the video games and things like that. And so I really feel blessed to have that moment when we could really be outside and enjoying things like that. Kickball,
Right.
And baseball, and hide and go seek, and catching crawdads at the creek and things
Oh,
like that.
yeah. And like I said, them were all great times and definitely a different generation that we grew up in. And I wouldn't change that for the world. One thing that, like I was doing a podcast with Brandon, and we had talked about this and mentioned you also, is that we went from Santa Fe to Irvin Junior High to Hickman Mills. So, of course, like I said, we rode the same school bus. We, snuck out and ran around the neighborhood when we were supposed to. Sometimes we were able to get back in the house. Sometimes we weren't. But after high school, and I say we, I don't want to say lost touch, because we've always known each other and we've always been family like that. But we definitely went different paths. After high school, did you go to college? Did you just work?
It was a funny thing for me because during that time I was kind of in a wild and crazy environment.
No.
And, yeah. And I was telling Wesley on the way to main event, like, I had counselors pull me in a race out, like, you are a junior and you have 3 credits. Like, you need to drop out.
Of high school?
Yeah, of high school. And I was like, oh, okay. Maybe that's what I should do then,
So did you end up dropping out?
I did. And I was telling Wesley, my father, he was like, okay, you can drop out. You're going to work 40 hours a week. And I'm not buying you a car. You're
Right.
gonna work, and you're gonna walk to whatever job you have, and that's gonna
Right.
be it. You have a place to stay, but that's it.
Right.
So I got a job at the Long John Silver's. I walked, a couple blocks every day. I did my 40 hours, and I'm like, this is not how I want my life.
Right.
Right?
Very
So-
impressive. I am very impressed. And I say that to you because I honestly did not know, as far as like the high school and the credits thing, I didn't know that. But,
Yeah.
you definitely, you had to hustle
Yeah.
to get where you're at. So definitely it's made you who you are today. You said you worked at Long John Silver's, and keep in mind, hey, I just so y'all know, I love some Long John Silver's.
Fish and chips.
Fish and chips. Yeah. After that, after you walked and you said, you know what, I'm just a little fed up with this. At what point did you just say, you know what, I got to go a different route. I got to try something different to get to where you wanted to be?
Mm-hmm. I think it was just the point of, I was like, hey, I don't want to walk to Long John Silver's every day for my life. Me and Mandy Isadore, we hung out for a long time.
Oh, Mandy Isadore.
She was my girl. We had a lot of fun times together, but we looked at each other like, this is not what we want to do.
Right.
We want to have an education, whether it's high school or college or whatever.
Right.
So both of us together went to the GED courses, and we studied and
Right.
got our GEDs together.
And both of you together.
Both of us
wow.
together. And I was telling Wesley on the way out, I was like, we were in college before our people graduated.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, let me give a shout out to Mandy. And just FYI, anytime you want to accept me as a friend on Facebook, you go right ahead, girl. Just a shout out.
That's my girl.
But on a serious note, I think that's very impressive. And
Thank you.
the one thing I find impressive as well, because again, you grew up with me, and so is that you and Mandy stuck together through thick and thin.
We did.
For years.
That's my sister.
Yeah,
Sure.
so definitely a big shout out to her.
Yeah.
So from what time we have left, and we do have some time left, I want to talk to you. You got your GED. At what point after your GED, what did you do next?
I think it was at that point I was like, I didn't finish high school, but I feel like I have something to prove.
Yeah.
I'm smart. Like, being the blonde chick or
Right.
whatever, like people automatically look at you like you do not have a brain.
Right.
And I wanted to prove to the world that I did have a brain
Right.
and I can think. So I went on to get my bachelor's and I went on to get my master's, and
So you got your bachelor's and your master's.
I did.
Oh,
master's
wow.
in business. And here I am.
Well, kids, if you're listening, that just goes to show you can do whatever you put your mind to. I think that's totally amazing, because I'll be honest with you, I don't have my master's. Now, luckily for me, I'm not a spell master's, but I don't have my master's. So
That helps.
yeah, it does help. Yeah. But again, that's I credit you for that, because
Thank you.
it's one thing to get that, but also, like you said before, you had a mindset, and not a lot of people had that back then, because again, that was a whole different generation. That was the generation where there wasn't no kind of crazy laws like there are today.
No.
There were no cameras. I mean, we pretty much did, like you said, we stayed out till the streetlights came on, and then we actually snuck out, and played again for about a couple hours,
With a knife in back of my pants. To be like,
Yeah.
hey, you want to mess with me? You can, but
and
it's
just
not a
FYI
good idea.
Right, and FYI, I wasn't with her at that point, just so you know. I didn't sneak out at that point. So, but hey, if that was you, you know who you are.
Yeah, Tanya.
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah. So I want to talk to you also, because again, we and I want to give a shout out to them as well, because we grew up with a great set of people, like the Scotts.
We did. Scotts, love them girls.
Yeah,
Oh my God, my sisters.
Charla, Shaquita,
Rita,
Tamara, and Keisha.
Keisha.
And then, of course, we grew up with the Dykes.
The Dykes, Richie,
Rick
Ryan.
and Ryan. Then we also grew up with Katie and Mary, the Carpenters.
Katie, Lindsay, Tommy.
Yes, all of them.
Amos, yes.
So I want to give a shout out to them because, again, that is just part of our history that, again, we're never ashamed of. So,
no.
Yeah.
Love them guys. Yeah.
So, let's talk about, and we do got a few minutes left before we actually end part one, but let's talk about you are a mother.
Yes.
Now just me, because I've known you since birth, and you've known me since diapers.
Right.
Me personally, I would have never. Not that you're not a great mother, because I know you are. But as a kid, you just like, my God, that person has a child. When you became a mother, and trust me when I tell you, people that are listening, she's a very great mother. When you held your child for the first time, did that also motivate you to say, you know what, I got to have better. I want to be better.
Yeah. I mean, for me especially, I think a lot of my people know that my son had 2 markers for Down syndrome and had a spot on his heart. So the doctors basically told me, hey, do you want to get the amniocentesis, and if he has these Down syndromes, you can just get rid of him. Well,
I'm going to have you hold that thought, and I'll tell you what, when we come back, we're going to talk more with Kristy when she comes back, not just about her son, but also about the crew. We'll be back.